Hi friends, it's Unicorn and today I'm bringing you my August wrap-up. I believe you all noticed that we're almost at the end of the September and a lot of factors placing the reasons of why this wrap-up is delayed. One of them is that my mental health state was greatly challenged, to which I'm happily report that it's gotten a lot better and now I am rising again from the ashes of depression and became somewhat a functional human being. So with that being said, let's talk about books. In August, although I was kind of in a rut, I was able to finish 4 books and also DNF'd 1 book. So now let's talk about the 4 books that I finished first and then the DNF in the end. The first book I finished is a memoir. It is called The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Evanna Lynch. This book was recommended to me by Lily, who has a wonderful book blog, which I will link down below. And this is a very skillful crafted memoir. I would say that this is a masterpiece. So Evanna Lynch is an actor and celebrity, but she chose to not put her face on this memoir, the cover of this memoir. Instead, she chose some object which is very meaningful to her growth. So I just want to applaud her for doing that. And talking about the book itself, it is a book that focusing on her childhood, especially the part where she was suffering from anorexia. It's about her journey and also her recovery. And it is a very reflective memoir, and in my opinion, this is one of the childhood memoirs that have done right. I say that because when I was reading this book, I can't help but comparing it to a lot of other memoirs that I've read about other people's childhood. And in coming of age memoirs, they are a common narrative that giving the younger self a voice, which is very nice and make everything very relatable and easier to understand. However, it is very easy for authors to fall into 2 very distinctive narrations. The first is when they were talking about their childhood, they were talking from the voice of the younger self, so with almost no reflection and the voice can be a little bit childish sometimes. And in the second half, where they will talk about after they grow up and their reflections and thoughts. And that is a very common way of narration, and I actually like it a lot. However, it does divide the books into 2 parts, and it's not very cohesive in terms of reflections and also thoughts and growth. But this book is very different. Evanna Lynch combined her younger self and also her growth and reflection all together. While giving her younger self a voice, she vividly capturing everything she went through in her childhood and also the suffers that she has to conquer at that time. But at the same time, she pointed out the things that she learned along the way, or she pointed out the things that she could have learned at that point and she understood later on in her life. And I especially appreciate that she recognized the thing that she talks about can be triggered to some people. So because of that, she actually provided some tools for you at the same time to navigate this trigger. And I just feel like this is very refreshing to read. With that being said, this book is also very difficult to read because of how good she writes. She managed to present her mental illness in a very honest way and doesn't sugarcoat anything that she went through. So when I was reading this book, I have like 2 thoughts. Sometimes I cannot stand all the hardness in this book, and I just feel like it's so hard for me to continue, but at the same time, I don't want to put it down because the only way that I will feel comfortable, like I will feel better, is continue reading until the hard part has passed in her life. So it's a very interesting reading process, and also this is a very thought-provoking book. And of course, the elephant in the room is Evanna Lynch has a very special bond with J.K. Rowling, and she talks about it candidly in her memoir. And at this point, we cannot talk about J.K. Rowling without acknowledging and mentioning the detrimental damages she did to the trans community. Personally, I am disgusted by what J.K. Rowling does after she got all the fame and the hatred that she spread online. However, I also don't want to discourage you from picking up this memoir if you don't like J.K. Rowling like me, because we don't want her to steal the spotlight of Evanna Lynch in this memoir, because this is not about other people. This is about Evanna Lynch and her journey and recovery. So overall, I think this is a very brilliant book about mental health, and how it writes about mental health is very helpful, I feel like. So I highly recommend it if you haven't picked it up yet. The second book I finished in August is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang is a very beloved writer in the fantasy world, and it is said this book is her literary fiction debut. In this book, we follow a person called June who is trying to be a writer. However, her work does not get recognized, and at the same time, her best friend Athena was a literary darling. Athena got book deals left and right, and one day when they were celebrating together, Athena actually unexpectedly died, and June became the only witness of her death. And after she witnessed Athena's death, she kind of acted on impulse and stole the manuscript of Athena, which is unpublished and nobody has read it. So June stole the manuscript and edited it and published as her own. And because Athena is a Asian American and June is white, so June actually changed her name to a more ambiguous one to rebrand herself as someone related to Asian American culture, and everything started from there. This book got a lot of hype because of the author, of course, and also because of the main theme is to talk about how the publishing industry can be very hypocritical when it comes to representing underrepresented culture. So I think it is fair to say that I went into this book with a fairly high expectation because I heard nothing but good things about R.F. Kuang's writing. However, this book left me a little bit underwhelmed on that sense because although it brought out the issues in the capitalism and the diversity campaign in society, I feel like the discussions are pretty much on the basic level and I didn't really get some new information from it. However, toward the end of the book, I feel like my feelings were misplaced, and I realized why in the last 20 pages of this book, because of the gruesome environment and atmosphere it's creating, and also how the main narrator worked out. This is actually a thriller, and it's a very common theme in a thriller to have a unlikable and unreliable narrator. And if you're reading it with the expectation of a thriller, this is actually an excellent plot-driven story which can capture you from the beginning to the end. And after I realized that, everything I felt about this book actually fall into places, and I feel like this is actually a pretty decent thriller, just like it didn't deliver the things that I went into it for. The third book I finished is Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe. This is a autobiography memoir, and I read this one for a local book club that I joined, and I really liked it. This book is talking about the author's experiences growing up and feel like it didn't fit in any gender descriptions. So it is a book about a self-identity journey and also the interactions it had along the way. This book has the most captivating and very easily comprehensible metaphors. One that particularly resonated with me is talking about the topic of gender non-binary. In that illustration, it presented an analogy of an island with a mountain in the middle and ocean along the side. And there are people who was born in the mountain and there are people who was born around the ocean. And growing up, most people tend to remain where they were born, but there are some people who ventured into other territories. For example, they want to go from the mountain to the ocean or from the ocean to the mountain, and some people decided to live in between in the forest, for example. I love this analogy so much. I feel like this is such a easily understandable but also powerful way to explain gender non-binary, and it just captures the sense of gender identity so perfectly. And this is not the only analogy that I loved in this book. However, I don't want to say too much about it in case I spoil the story. And indeed, this is a book that I highly recommend, and in terms of coming of age memoir, I feel like this is definitely a very heartwarming one. The last book I read is Elena Knows by Claudia Piñeiro, translated by Frances Riddle. This book I read for the Women in Translation month, which is August, and I love this book so much. Although it's a fairly short book, it tackles the most complex topics in my opinion. The book follows Elena, who is in the late stage of Parkinson's disease, and her daughter Rita was found dead in the church one day, and the police quickly concluded that this is a suicide. However, Elena doesn't believe it, and she ventured into her own investigation. And during the investigation, Elena recalls a variety of events that happened between her and Rita over the years, well as managing her energy very carefully because of her Parkinson's disease. And I feel like what makes the book exceptional is that it captures the complicated dynamic between a mother and daughter relationship, and also other topics such as community aging and just motherhood from different angles. Moreover, it offers a glimpse into the world of chronic disease and also its impact on the patients as well as the caregivers. And besides the plot, the writing itself is beautiful, it's captivating, and immerses us completely in Elena's consciousness, allowing us to experience every emotions Elena has due to the recent loss and the harsh reality that she is facing right now. I feel like this book is another one very thought-provoking, so I highly recommend it. And lastly, let's talk about the DNF. I did not finish Little Fire Everywhere by Celeste and I don't intend to further reading it in the future. And this is somewhat of a disappointment because I enjoyed her other book, Everything I've Never Told You, so much, and I intentionally picked up this book when I was in the deepest of my depressive episodes because I wanted this book to pick me up, but it just didn't work out for me. The story was set in a very privileged neighborhood where the Richardson's family rented their spare house to a new tenant called Maia Warren. Maia is an artist and she has a daughter, and her daughter is at the same age with the Richardsons' children, so they quickly became friends. However, the Richardsons discovered that Maia had some past that she's been hiding from them, and at the same time in their community there's a white family adopted a Chinese American baby, and that actually stirred up some disagreement between Maia and the Richardsons, but everything became very dramatic. The plot sounds very intriguing, and that was what has kept me going at the beginning of the book. However, like I mentioned, I feel this book is overly dramatic and sometimes it's very too convenient when everything needed a push. And on top of that, I just cannot bring myself to care about any of the characters, especially the Richardsons when they were acting out their privileges. Moreover, the thing that annoys me the most is the writing of teenagers in this book. They are in total of like 5 important teenagers in this book, but I feel like everybody is the same and they all obsessed with the same thing, which is having sex. Like, I understand that teenagers are teenagers, but the amount of obsession over sex is just very unrealistic to me, and it's also another evidence of how the pop culture is obsessed with compulsive sexuality, and it just really gave me a bad taste in my mouth. I know that I am the minority here for this book because this book has a over 4-star ratings, but after I decided to DNF it, I actually went to look at some of the spoilers for this book, and I don't regret that I don't spend more time with it. So yeah, I feel so ashamed that I have to DNF this book because everybody seems to love it, but it's just not for me. So there you have it. That's my August wrap up. I hope you still enjoyed this video despite that it's not that timely, and please let me know what book have you read recently and what book do you liked in August, and don't forget to say hi in the comment section down below. Thumbs up to this video if you liked it, and I wish you a happy reading. Stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in my next bookish video. Bye.